My name is Lee Bouman, and I'm a casting director in the South African film industry. I've been in the game for 20 years this year. I started as a baby. And when I say the words baby, I started in TV commercials and all those basics. I'm actually an actor, so I trained to be an actor. So I trained at Vancouver Film School, and I came back to South Africa actually just to train actors on what I had learned in Vancouver, because I was like, this is an amazing opportunity for people to learn what I'd learned at film school, and there wasn't someone teaching that in South Africa when I came back. But I used to be a fuller figure model, so I was very comfortable behind the camera. I used to act before I went to film school. But when I came back, I thought, let me teach. And then I somehow ended up being a casting director. And one of the skills that's important for a casting director is to have an eye for what, not just for talent, but for performance. And so having an actor background, I think, is one of the things that makes me a very good casting director, because I know what is required of the performance. There are a ton of casting directors who have no background in theater or film or whatever. And I think what gives an edge to a casting director is that you have you've been an actor, you've directed Friends, which is also how I got into directing and knew that I had a gift for being able to look at a scene and be able to go, this is what we need to make it better. So, yeah, I never ended up giving classes and becoming a teacher. I became a casting director. But eventually, I think essentially through what I do, I am a teacher anyway. So my biggest thing when I came back to South Africa was every single person needs to walk away from an interaction with me or someone that is employed by me with an experience, with something that uplifts them, with something that educates them, with something that makes a difference in their life, whether it's a redirect or it's a constructive criticism or noticing a tick or something that person's doing that could be a bad habit, like a lip smack before it or a sharp inhale before they begin their scene, or what they do with nerves. And I think that's the kind of casting director I am, and I always want everyone to be, but not everyone is like me. So the other things that I really love to do is in performances, it's also just really 180 things. So actors who haven't read a script obviously get a little bit of information, and they get a casting brief, and it's my job to explain to them, the vision of the filmmaker, the vision of the director, but also to give them the nuanced performance, but also to give them a little bit of an edge. And I think in South Africa, a lot of actors leave their imagination by the door. And I think that's one of the most difficult things is that they don't come in with like 2 or 3 different ways to do it. Like when I was performing in Vancouver, I'd be like, I've got like 3 ways to do it. And they'd be like, great. And that's, of course, if you could get into the studio. And I think that's one of the things that we really need to work on in South Africa. When I say you as an actor need to work on in the film industry is coming in being super prepared. Like, I've got Candy over here, I've got Cammy over there. I know that this is going to be my camera, right? So I'm going to have a basic prop move, and they come in super prepared. So that the casting director, literally, this is my dream day. All I do is go action and cut, and I never have to do, the creative work. So that's one of the things that as a young aspiring actor in the industry is to come in with ideas, come in with options. If they don't work, it's okay. I always go like, let's try it. If it falls flat, we won't submit the take. But if you don't come in with already having done the work, like, for example, like maybe the way you read the script was that the character really loved this person, but actually they freaking hate them. So how does that change if you get a redirect in the room and you're like, oh my gosh, so play around in your prep work. And when you come into the studio, that's when the magic happens. And then suddenly you've got this really interesting take on something that no one else has brought. We also get to play, in South Africa, one of the most beautiful things about South Africa is that we're a service country. So actors who get to play on these shores get opportunities not just in local TV commercials, local feature films, local. They get opportunities to be in the room for international feature films, for leads, supports, featured, day players. Something that if you were in LA, you would be standing in the queue. I don't even think there is a queue because you'd be on a list of a self-tape of 1,074 that some casting assistant is looking at, whereas you actually get to come into the room when you're in South Africa because we're a service country. So that opportunity for me is immense. So actors should try, especially young actors, learn an American accent, learn a British accent. Maybe you're good at Irish. Maybe you're good at Russian. Cape Town specifically, but Johannesburg as well, has been known for replicating New York, I don't know, Scandinavia, Congo. It's incredible the opportunities that South Africans have. And if you don't take full advantage of it and really work, well, if you want to take full advantage of it, learn the accents, learn the techniques. And one of the many things I say is, it's 2023, soon to be 2024. There's so much content out there that allows you to educate yourself. You don't have to go get a voice coach if you can't afford one. Watch Law and Order, watch all seasons, talk back to the TV, say the lines, see how it feels in your body. And then when you get money, then you can go get an accent coach and help you refine it. But there's so much that you can do without having to pay a cent. It's available for you. So for me, working in the film industry is a bit of like cracking the whip with people and like, why didn't you leave why didn't you bring it into the room on the first, second, and third take? Why did I have to get 5 or 6 out of you? So my advice to young people is to do the prep. It's one of the most important things, because to make a lasting impression on a casting director is to show that you're ready to play. You've done the prep, you're ready to play, and you take direction and you're open. It's like the actor is the vessel. And that really, really helps us in the studio. I have studios in both cities. So I work in Johannesburg and Cape Town. I work in Durban. I do a lot of street casting for different projects. So I'm always looking for someone with an X factor. And I think the term, I want to be an actor. Yeah, everybody wants to be an actor. So I have this theory, right? If you loved basketball, and you showed up at the NBA and you were playing, and you were like, hey, I want to be a basketball player. And you showed up at the NBA and you said to Michael Jordan's coach, or, back in the day, so can I play today? He would probably go, excuse me? Like, did you train every day for 8 years or 20 years? Did you practice your craft every single day? Just because you play good ball on the court by your mama's house doesn't mean you get to play at the NBA. And that's the same way I feel about acting. A lot of people want to be actors. They don't do the work. They don't train. They don't work on their craft every single day. They have 15 minutes of fame because they were discovered for a new young television program and they grew in the show and now they're stars. No, you've got to do the work. Meisner said it takes 20 years to be a good actor, and that's just the beginning. So for me, it's educate yourself, uplift, teach, train. If you don't have someone to work with, you know how many unemployed actors there are in the industry? Pick one. Do a scene together. Work on a scene off camera and do it over 6 weeks and film yourself and go, wow. And that doesn't cost you money. So there's so much that you can do when you're not working, when you're not gigging, to actually help yourself and therefore help your career and make you better. So I find it interesting as well, because I sometimes see actors and they don't bring me their best, and I'm like, I'll try them again on the next one, or on the next one after the next one. And a year goes by and no difference. So for me, I gotta make a little note and I go, it's been a year. He's not improved, not changed. His accent hasn't got better. And I've given him those notes, or her those notes. And I think that's why the X Factor is the people that come back and they blow me away. And that is huge. And I want to be blown away. I've had a couple of things that I find very fascinating. Is I love people that sit quietly in the waiting room to prepare, especially for a role that's quite tricky. One guy was actually meditating. I'll never forget that. I actually employed him to work for me. Then I realized he meditated a bit too much at work, so maybe not such a good hire. But then there was another person, she's really young. She was yachting, she studied acting, she came back in, she did this performance on these 3 scenes. I had no notes and I was crying at the end of the audition. And I just looked at her and I said, I have no notes for you. And if you know Bonnie Lee Bouman, that's very rare. And I think it's when I experienced those kinds of magic and I didn't have to block and give them eyeline tips and any of that stuff. That is truly magnificent. And there's only it's like what... There's only one Brad Pitt. There's only one Angelina Jolie. There's only one Jennifer Aniston. Hold on, there's 3 of them in that conversation. Probably not a good... Anyway, you know where I'm going. They've got it factors for a certain reason. And 1% of the acting population really achieves stardom. But the rest of actors can have an amazing career if they work at their craft. And that's what I want to see every year. And so 20 years in the game, I just want to see that you're getting better every time I see you, and that your approach to stuff is continually using your imagination, because that's the gift of the actor. Besides learn your lines. That's helpful. In America, they read off the page, but I was watching Americans the other day reading off the page, and this guy barely looked down. He was like glanced, looked up. We haven't perfected that art yet. We have to try harder. As South Africans, we really have to try harder because we're a small pond of talent, but we have a huge industry. So to get your piece of this industry is a lot easier than it is to get in LA or the UK. But you got to do the work. And when I see that work, I'm like, yes. So if you would like to get into the industry as a casting director, one of the best things to do is to work for a casting director that exists already. One thing that I found very interesting when I went to search about training for casting directors is that there is actually no training. I think Stanford has a summer program for casting assistants in the US. So the only way that you can actually become and learn the skill and the art of being a casting director and the ethics of being a casting director. And let's call that, I speak very highly about ethics as a casting director. You cannot be an agent as well as a casting director and a producer. You can be one. So I'm only a casting director. I do not represent talent. It's like there's a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy in this world. You can think you can short step it, but you can't. Because if you want the credibility and you want the ethics, and you need to learn under somebody that has that. So start as a casting assistant, make it very, very clear to the casting director that you want to learn to be a casting director. Do not blindside people. That is a big no-no. Your intention should be clear. I'm here to learn because I want to open up my own casting studio. Casting assistant, you get to studio director, but there's such a huge, vast amount of knowledge that it actually is very difficult to learn this in a year. I am still learning, and I'm 20 years in the game. But the way to become a casting director is to volunteer services. I've had a lot of people intern for me, see what the world looks like. They said, I don't want to be paid. I said, I need to pay you something. So I'm not that cruel. And then a lot of people who've just stayed on over the years that are actors who've worked for me. They've never gone into casting, but they have an ability and they can direct people. So you have to have a number of skills, but you have to have a business skill. So it's not just about creative. You need to know how to run the business, and also because you work with contracts and you work with rate cards and usages and territories and Amazon, Netflix, all of these streaming platforms, you have to know what you're doing. And the only way to do that is start learning it from someone that, like myself, or someone that's been in the game for a while, and make your way through it. As your knowledge increases, your ability as a casting assistant, we don't really use the phrase casting associate very much in South Africa, because that's a monetary thing and a monetary buy-in. But as you can slowly develop your skills in all of those areas, from creative, ethics, business management, all of those things become well-rounded. I think that's the best way, but you've got to learn from somebody like me, maybe. Oh, by the way, I'm going to retract that thing about free. I'm happy with free. It's a good thing. You can approach me.